Hi Eric, how you doing? I got your final logo and I've got your workup and you are doing absolutely wonderful. Um, Wonderful stuff here. I've got some suggestions. Let's start with the logo. Do you remember when we started a couple of weeks ago and your first submission was really kind of chock full of effects? And I'm still seeing that a little bit, Eric. I'm still seeing this really overwhelming propensity to want to use effects on your work. Now, this is a rendering of a metal, so I can kind of see it here. I can understand that, okay? But like over here, now you've got the drop shadow, then you've got kind of like that photoshopped effect on the edge of the appendages. And I'm just wondering if that's not too much. And that in conjunction with this really heavy drop shadow, I'm just, boy, I'm just thinking that now self-admittedly, remember we talked about this, self-admittedly you said that, I think it was back in week 2, you said that, you have this kind of desire or this habit of using a lot of effects. And I think that that's fine depending on where and how the piece is going to be used. In a piece like this, we have to look at the effects to see if they're really even feasible for the piece. Now, if we look at the logo, we see this gorgeous Budapest scripted typeface mixed with this really ultra modern sans serif. So this juxtaposition is really interesting. And then you have the rings, okay? So that's great. Everything is presented straightforward. Then we come over to the mark, and you've got these really heavy drop shadows on the mark. And what does that do? I think that does one thing that I think is a mistake. It adds depth, or actually I should say I shouldn't say depth. It adds, well, it does. It adds depth by adding separation from the mark and the background that it basically rests on. However, the logo, if floating freely in infinity, wouldn't have a background. I mean, if you think about it like that, if the logo is an entity on its own, it doesn't always need to be viewed on a background, meaning the drop shadow would be kind of redundant or just wouldn't make sense. I suggest removing the drop shadow. When we come down here, Eric, I think this is a nice looking mark, and I'm going to go ahead and go as far as saying I think this mark right here is probably more attractive than this mark right here. Just that the whole composition of the mark itself, I think that these separations, instead of stacking these, I think these separations between these kind of wings are really interesting. And I think it's more pronounced here than it is here. I'm going to go ahead and say this, I think that maybe even turning the mark up so that the red starts on the right and fans off this way, again, might be really another interesting approach. I mean, work it. Try to see how you're working. I guess try a couple of final touches on your logo. But supposing you don't like that, I would say at the very least, let's do this. Let's remove the drop shadows from the mark. Try not to stack these so much as have them appear to be next to each other like this. So you're going to kind of eliminate this kind of depth that you've tried to build into the mark here. And I think that's a good thing to do. As far as the logo, and I think this area right here is really super congested. I think that Budapest is kerned really tightly. So these letters, like the T and the S, are basically touching each other, creating this unusual negative space right here. And then we can see other areas like between the U and the D and the P and the A, where the type is just really super, super tight. I would suggest open up that kerning, widen that, the areas between those letters. And then I also think that this would probably be better something like that. Because right now, the way that the rings are is just really, they're shifted to the left, which means if this whole thing were on a fulcrum, it would be going whoop, it would be really heavy to the left. Okay? So other than that, now my final suggestion for the logo is this. Instead of you go yellow, you go red, yellow, green, blue, and then this other new blue. And I don't know so much that's working. I understand you want to add a color, and I understand it can't be black. Try a purple in there. Try slipping a purple in there. I really think, though, even though it's not part of the Olympic rings, I think it's going to be an interesting, a shade of purple to work in harmony with these colors. I think it's going to be an interesting choice. Try that. Metals look fantastic. Really, really good rendering on those. Excellent. And then I think the ticket, mechanic-wise, I think the ticket looks good. Now, again, here's your logo without the drop shadow. So just so you know, there would be some inconsistencies in branding there. And again, that's one of the inherent problems of that drop shadow. The ticket itself, I think, is really, really designed well. This area right here, I think, should be a little bit bigger. That's very, very pertinent information. So that is going to have to be. Remember, this is an international audience. So things like location and entrance and the seat numbers, that's very critical information on this ticket. All right. Other than that, Eric, I think you're doing fantastic. You are. You're not trying to force feed anyone. You're working at a good, nice pace, allowing yourself to catch up with the project, or conversely, letting the project catch up with your thought process. So, I think it's smart for you not to be just throwing everything at the kitchen sink here and giving me, all of your banners and flags and ice rinks, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's smart to kind of slow down here until you really get your legs, so to speak. Get a good solid foundation underneath you. And I think you're getting there. I just think that a couple of comments, addressing a couple of those issues, I think will really help. Okay? Any questions, please feel free to get with me, Eric. Great job. Thank you.